Come meet me at the Musial with Alan and Daniel. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. Everyone come gather round, listen to your favorite sound. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. We'll talk the games and all the rest, about the team that we love best. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. We're gonna talk about the Cardinals all night long.
Good morning. Welcome to another edition of Meet Me at Musial. I'm your host, Daniel Shoptaw at C70. With me, as always, Alan Medlock, a Medlock 1, coming to you Friday morning after what's pretty much been a miserable week. Alan, the Cardinals had momentum. They played a little pretty well going into the break. They had Jordan Walker do the Jordan Walker thing. They were coming off the buzz of J.J. Weatherholtz had an extension. All that just went out the window because this has been a pretty miserable week.
Yes. Yesterday being the makeup game against the D-backs, the return home, where you kind of thought you could get a little bit of redemption. You go and they get kicked, with a bad pitching performance. I wouldn't say a bad pitching performance, but a subpar pitching performance. Yeah, I mean, it's that was the one on a road trip heading out there. I could kind of understand. Um, it is what it is. You start out on the West, and you never know what's going to happen. You have face a pretty good Diamondbacks team, and blow a couple leads against them. Then you fail to hit in Anaheim, and hopefully get back to St. Louis and play well yesterday, and they just didn't do it. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with the weekend series. Sounds like the crowds are going to be pretty good. I know it's going to be nice and hot, and you get some central foes with Cincinnati and Chicago coming back to back, and see if you can play a little bit better.
I mean, that's all you can hope for sure. But yeah, there was a lot of talk about pitching this week, which is fair. I mean, the pitching was not superb at all, and there were some late meltdowns. But the Cardinals scored more runs in the ninth inning last night or yesterday afternoon than they did in like the 3+ games before that. The offense just has not been there this week. I mean, and that's not great because they've had trouble hitting at home. There's a lot of numbers floating around now about the splits and how much better they are on the road. But 6 of those games were on the road, and they really didn't hit in any of those except the Diamondbacks game that they wound up somehow blowing a 7-0 lead.
Yeah. That's what's a little bit disturbing is how they've kind of bottomed out offensively, especially, it's funny, you give the Herrera day off, and Church finally came through and did something yesterday. But I mean, there was 2 people in the lineup that have really not done much for the past, 30, 40 so at bats, a little bit troubling. It's just, I kind of wonder, I mean, how many of these guys are just running out of steam, this time of year. They have some full seasons under them, but they've been playing meaningful games, and Herrera didn't set a single game all year until yesterday. So that may play a part in this. I'm kind of curious to see if he's in the lineup tonight. I kind of anticipate it, but it wouldn't surprise me if he wasn't. And it's hopefully that's just one of those ebbs and flows, and you can kind of start hitting when it's back at Busch and it's hot, but they haven't hit really well at home all year.
Yeah, I mean, it helps. I mean, I'd like to say it helps because the Reds are bringing Kevin to town, but honestly, their starting pitching has been pretty good, and I don't know about their bullpen, but a lot of their problem has been they haven't hit either. And the Cardinals hit them at a time where their bullpen was just terrible, and I think it's gotten better. So, there's no guarantees, but you would like to think that it would be a little bit more offensive production this weekend than there has been this past week. I don't know. I mean, I think it is very interesting to say that about, younger players. I was wondering the same thing, but then I started thinking, the the team did the exact same thing last year, right? I mean, we were talking. There was a lot of talk, even I think right before the break, how the Cardinals had the same record as they did last year. After the same amount of games, and I was like, well, this is obviously this is a different team, and this team, but they're going through kind of the same kind of post All-Star swoon that they did last year, and I have no idea if it. I mean, it's probably more just coincidence because there's no particular reason to think you know there's a structural problem or anything, and there are some significantly different players here than there were last year. So I don't know what the deal is, except for the fact that I think last year they started out in Arizona as well, and maybe it is just that that getting out of that rhythm and then taking off to the West Coast really messes with people. I don't know, but here they are doing it again.
Yeah, I don't. It's a good answer. I mean, the I always feel like the road trip out is always going to be a tough one, just to get the motor going back, and the difference, especially on the West Coast, with the time change difference and the travel differences, and in one of those things. So
Mhm.
I'm not really to nailing anything until you see how they play at home. But my one concern is that they don't play very well at home, and we'll see how it goes. I mean, it's uh, pretty big series. I mean, it's one of those that I think you in any just maybe more for pride
Mhm.
than playoff position. I feel like you have to win the series this weekend and then see what you have match up against the Cubs, next week, which you have the rivalry, and as we get toward the end of summer, and one of those things could be a lot of fun. So yeah, I don't know. I'm ready for a reset. The day off yesterday probably would have been big. The if not for the rain out.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes. I mean, I'm kind of ready for a good Friday night of baseball, though.
Yeah, hopefully so. And I mean, Rhett Lauder's going tonight for the Reds, so out of the Red starters, I mean, the Cardinals have kind of beaten around him a little bit, I think, when they faced him last time. Either that or they didn't because they should have. I can't remember exactly how that goes, but I feel like they did. Um, and so, yeah, you would like to think that. I mean, if you want to have a chance to win the series, you have to win tonight. I mean, Hunter Green's going on Saturday, and that's not ideal. And this pitching staff has been kind of shaky at best. And I think when you get into it, the elephant in the room is Matthew Liberatore, right? I mean, 5 runs in the first inning on what was that, Monday night. And granted, he settled in and made it through the 6th, which is all well and good. But it seems like every time Matthew Liberatore pitches, there's one inning like that, and he's had over the last last year, like from July to July, I want to say he's had 30 something starts and his ERA is over 5. Um, and when you watch Liberatore, I know it feels like he's still young, but he's got to be I'm not looking at it, but 26, 27. He's starting to get to that point where I don't know that there's any more there.
Yeah, the it seems like we've been talking about this for about 3 weeks now. And I always held out a lot of hope. But yeah, you pitched well and got through the 6, but you gave up 5 in the first. You know what I mean? One of those. I mean, which you clearly know what I mean, but um, yeah, I don't know what the answer is on that, and it's funny that what I'm curious to see what the long term outlook is going to look like on the rotation. That's
Mm.
that's a big question mark for me. Of we had the trial and error year, and to see what happens. But I think that we're starting to figure some of these guys out for not only the negative, for the positive too. With some of the rotation pieces that they have right now. But like I said, one thing that we were worried about before the season started, and as we got into it, is where are some of these innings going to come from, and may call for that sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was interesting that they brought up Hunter Dobbins to make a start, push everybody back, and the idea that they're trying, although yesterday's bullpen may force their hand, they're trying to keep him up,
Yeah,
so he doesn't have to go back. Which we're getting close to that deadline, and we all expect um, Dustin May to be traded. But, Quinn Matthews still knocking on the door down there. Hunter Dobbins has obviously pitched well enough in his starts to get the first shot at this. I mean, do they? Yeah, I think when we've talked about it some, but I think it's just really getting fascinating to see if they're not going to wind up going to a 6-man rotation after the trade deadline, just because you know McGreevy's had a full season under his belt. Matthew Liberatore's had a full season under his belt, but Palante could probably use. And I'd have to look at his innings. He's got some, so maybe it's not as bad. But you've got Leahy, you'll have and then Dobbins and Matthews. I just wonder if they'll go to that 6-man afterwards. And I mean, that does put a burden on the bullpen, though.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Now, I want to see more of Dobbins. I actually really, really like Dobbins. And the more you think about it, and it's a point that I was thinking about that we would talk about today through the Angel series is how well outside of Liberatore that the rotation actually was. You know what I mean? And then because I thought like he had a really good start, Palante had a good start. Just keep you in games. And the one that the kicker was the Liberatore 5-run first inning on the road. And I mean, I understand you can score a ton of runs. Most people can score a ton of runs at Arizona. The Cardinals do not, but just kind of frustrating that some of those pieces have. I mean, it's better than I expected. But yeah, I would like to see more of Dobbins, and I mean, just for I don't know. Sometimes I get selfish about this, to where it's like I don't know if I really really like Dobbins or I just really really like that it's something different. If that makes sense, that's
Oh yeah.
that's some of my intrigue with Matthews. A little bit of like, hey, we've heard the name forever. Let's see a start. Let's just see if they can't build a little momentum and compete and bring a new guy in, and let's see what kind of competitor he is. And sometimes I don't know if that's necessarily, hey, I think the move needs to be made, or if, hey, I'm just selfish and want to see it.
I mean, there is that natural desire to see something new that you've seen all this, and it's especially when it's not exactly exciting or it's not necessarily been effective, like in Matthew Liberatore's case. So, yeah, I absolutely get that. I'm very interested in seeing some of these guys as well. Um, and I feel like there's been, and we've talked about Joshua Baez. He's kind of cooled off at Memphis, and you wonder if that's less of a priority to get him up than it may have been earlier. Then again, who knows? But Matthews just really feels like it's time for him to be here, and he will be at some point in time after August 3rd. And that will be fun. And I think we'll need that, right? I mean, because the Cardinals, if they continue to struggle like they have, and they're kind of dancing now around that 500 mark that they have not gone under all year, but they're only 2 games over right now. If we're gonna, they're probably gonna need a little bit of a spark. I think fans are gonna need a little bit of a spark to continue to watch this, especially if they trade off Bay, if they trade off half the bullpen. I thought they would trade off Newt. I don't know if that's still the case, but I guess it depends on what's out there. There's some buzz out there that like the White Sox and the Angels might be looking for catchers. So, what does that look like? Is it, that's a possibility for Cardinals too. There's a lot of different things. So the team could look significantly different after the deadline, and it might need a little bit of a pick me up in the fact that here we get to finally see the debut of Whit Matthews. I don't know. I mean, I don't know that the front office looks at it that way, but it probably once they get to that point, it's a nice bonus.
Yeah, and it's one of those to where you're right about the new bar situation, to where that could be one where you keep and thread that needle a little bit. You know what I mean? Of still competing and whatnot. But I do think you have to get. I don't think you have to be desperate to move some of the guys, but I think that in a best value play, you probably need to. Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see what direction they go. I do feel like it's been determined well before how they played, though. I think you can go several different directions, and we even had the comment, or we had the question last week of, is there a situation where they stand pat? And I don't know if that was ever really realistic.
Mhm.
The I, I think there's a lot of opinion out there that you have to get rid of May because the next thing that'll happen is probably an injury. Out
Yeah.
of I think that I wonder how much the Romero appendicitis affected his market a little bit. Because you never know how long that's going to be out. Now it's good
Right.
depending on how severe it was, and yeah, it could be interesting to see how everything works out of that bullpen and see what they do. I wouldn't mind if there was maybe an overhaul and just to see new guys, but then it goes back to that question: do I just want to see new guys, not necessarily
Mhm.
the fact of it'll be effective? But yeah, you're right. I mean, it definitely needs a spark. I mean, it feels like things are a little bit down right now, but they're a heck of a lot better than we expected them to be, and there's some intrigue to it, and I wouldn't be overly excited to see the Cardinals as big movers at the deadline, but I mean I could see them being some movement at all, some movement period.
Yeah, they're not gonna be the headliners of the trade
Yeah,
market or anything like that. I mean, with the Tigers improving, Dustin may be one of the better starters that's actually on the market. But other than that, no, they don't. They're not gonna bring any big deal in. They're not gonna make send any big name out or anything like that. So, um, I agree. They may just be busy. Stanek, Justin Brule has pitched well enough that you know somebody looking for lefty might go with that. Although how the Cardinals have managed after without him, but he's pitched for the most part well enough. Um, yeah, I don't know who other pieces they would be interested in moving, but even if you could remove Romero, which you're right, the appendicitis thing is is it a situation where a team knows what he is and trusts that he'll be back to that before the end of the year,
yeah,
or does that mean he's just going to wind up staying in St. Louis? I don't know. That could be interesting. But if they traded Romero, Stanek, Brule, um, and then Dustin May, that's quite a bit of a makeover on the pitching staff. And I don't know exactly how they would go about filling those holes either. Matthews is an obvious name to come up, but I don't know that there's a whole lot more. I'd have to look, and Kyle would tell us if it's due. But um, how much Memphis has. I mean, there's probably some of those, you know, organizational soldiers or guys that are, qualified enough to be a bullpen piece for the rest of the year. They can cover the innings, but I don't know if there's anything exciting um, that would come up besides Matthews.
yeah. I'm curious. I was curious about that as well. Who's ready to come up? Who was knocking on the door? I haven't paid a lot of attention to it. Matthews was just the name that comes up the most,
Mhm.
and it's somebody that I actually really want to see. So yeah, I don't know what's available or how they would do it, or if there was a complete blow up, which is I guess there's some potential of how they would handle that.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up the Memphis roster real quick just to see. Well, Ryan Fernandez is down there. He'd come back up. That's not anything new. Um, Bryson Mounts would probably get a return, um,
Yeah,
which
true.
is somewhat new. We've seen him a little bit, but not much. And then who knows? Maybe we can get Jared Schuster back for the fourth time this year. I or and then and Cade Winquest. I know that's a name that could be possibly put in that mix. He was taken in the Rule 5 by the Yankees. They never used him, so he hasn't really made a debut yet because he hasn't pitched in the game. But that could be somebody that would be interesting to come up if they did start clearing the decks. It's just really hard to know. But I do think that this week has given the front office whatever kind of cover they needed to make any kind of deals they wanted, right? I mean, 2 or 3 weeks ago we're talking about how do you trade off Dustin May when you're, the first wild card or whatever the case may be,
Yeah,
what it was. And now as they're just kind of, I think they kind of shown who they are and what the front office probably knew what they were. I don't think any of this is a huge surprise to them. And so that's just the way they were going to approach this, and now they can do what they want to do without a whole lot of friends, grabbing torches and pitchforks.
Oh, sure, yeah. It's true. I mean, you look no more than your run differential all year, and I mean, you could kind of see what your expectancy was, and I mean, here's the thing. I mean, I feel like the tone of this show is really, really down, but is there really, really any surprise? I feel like they're a lot better than we expected.
Yeah, we're just down because you're still dealing with that knee surgery stuff.
Yeah,
You're not bringing
yeah.
that energy that you usually do. So,
Oh well,
and I can't, and I
yeah.
can't, and I'm never bringing energy. So,
Well, we'll just leave it at that. Okay. Well, yeah.
but yeah, it's not a surprise, but it is still frustrating when you have had the season that they've had, right? I mean,
Sure.
if we were here after the Cardinals had played 2 or 3 games under 500 pretty much all year long, losing more than they win, just kind of pedaling along. Maybe you still have the Jordan Walker breakout, but nothing else. Then it's like, no big deal, whatever. People are probably saying just blow the whole thing up. But after those highs of this year, to just kind of, I don't want to say fall on their face, but because it's been a gradual kind of decline, but really tripping out of the gates after the break has really kind of brought down the excitement level, I think, around the team, which is, it's understandable.
Sure.
But you're right. We're getting to the spot that we expected to get. It's just we took the scenic tour instead of the straight line.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's really disappointing to hit the end of that.
Well, and there, think about this. I mean, there was a part of the off season and what the expectations would be to where, on July, 24th, that we would be digging for stuff to talk about, and clearly that hadn't been the case. Where there's still some momentum. There's still some names out there that we thought. There's, two guys from the everyday lineup. The opening day lineup are still in Memphis and not making a big argument to come back. So I do think that they're starting to figure themselves out a little bit, and to me, the it's still a good positive season that we're still in this, and the fact that you and I are both down after a game on July 23rd is a good sign. I think yesterday was, I told Amber, I said, this is kind of the gut punch, because I thought getting back to Busch, one, you want me personally, if you come back 500 after a road trip, you're pretty good. It's disappointing that you're 2-4, but I understand what you are. Come back, win yesterday's game. We're going into this, you build a little bit of momentum. To lose yesterday's game in the fashion that you did, where you couldn't hit, you blew your chances. One of your more consistent starters had trouble with command yesterday, which you haven't really seen out of him. It's one of those you're thinking, okay, well, it's a little bit disappointing. Let's see if you can rev up the engine. But to get kicked in the way that you did is a little bit disappointing. And you kind of wonder if you're even on the same level as the Diamondbacks at this point.
Yeah. I mean, it's always, we've said this about the Brewers, right? The Cardinals just are not matching up with the Brewers this year at all. And it seems to be the way with the Diamondbacks. Now, whether that is just hey, this just is a team that they don't match up well against, or if it should be an indication of what the team is, I guess that's up to you. But the fact is, Arizona passed them for the wild card spot, that last wild card spot. They hold the tiebreaker, which makes it even that much more difficult to get into postseason play. And like we were saying beforehand, granted, right now I think they would play Atlanta if they actually got into the playoffs. So maybe that would work out well for them, since they've kind of beaten up on the Braves. But for the most part, this just doesn't feel like a team that really needs to be getting into the postseason, because they're not going to go very far, if at all. And it's better served trying to set up that foundation for the next couple of years, which is what they've done somewhat. You're right. I mean, this has been a year that we got some answers, and answers that some were good. Found out Jordan Walker can play baseball, and JJ Weatherholt wasn't going to have any problems adjusting to the league, and Kyle Leahy can be a starter, which is that one just surprises me more than anything. But we heard those articles and stories about the process and everything like that with Leahy, and it really seems to be true, right? I mean, I'll pull it up maybe while you're talking, but over the last, month or so, he's probably been one of, if not the most reliable starter the Cardinals have.
Yeah, I mean I've actually been really impressed, and it kind of goes it kind of goes unseen because there for a while we were like, hey, he's more suited to the bullpen because we had a couple of clanker starts, and but then when you look back, you're like, he's been pretty consistent. The the funny thing is about the rotation that they have now, and I think this is just one of the ways that you have to build to stay in games through and through, but I think that they're going to have to change to ultimately compete. Long story, that's a long-winded version to say I think this is just one of those to where in the interim, this is how you have to look. The rotation this year hasn't looked much different than it has in the past few years. I mean, they still lack a lot of strikeouts, but they are competing on a high level, a lot of ground balls, staying in games. One of the things that we've talked about for several years. But they're still lacking the guy that's going to go out and strike out, 8 to 10 a game and blow you away and get that one start that's going to break a losing streak. But they've been consistent, and Leahy's been one of those. I want to know what change is going to come, to kind of break that cycle. Not necessarily like this is a bad one, but who's going to take that next step to be the guy that's going to be the big dog that can win those big games for you?
Yeah.
We had this conversation last week, and kind of in the vein of McGreevy too.
True. Yeah, I mean and it feels like you're getting that on the fringes as well. Pull it up from Leahy since the beginning of June has a 2.68 ERA, 3.01 FIP, uh, 7 strikeouts per nine, 2 walks per nine. I mean, again, is this a nice run? 33 strikeouts, 11 walks in 40 innings. Is it a nice run? Is it, finding something? I don't know, but it's long enough. It's 8 starts or so that it shows that the Cardinals were pretty right. I mean, I did not think that Kyle Leahy should be a starter. This just did not make any sense at all. And I have been proven wrong yet again, which is pretty consistent when you think about it. Um, I'm just I'm very, very impressed. Again, you're right. You want that guy that can strike out 8, 9, 10 guys a game
Yeah,
on a regular basis to be seriously competitive. You'd like to have 2 or 3 of those guys, but you need somebody that needs to step up in that regard. But
yeah,
if you had an offense that was top 10, like kind of like it was at the beginning of the year, this rotation would do fine for you, I think, because they're going to give up 3 to 4 runs a game. But if you're scoring 6 or 7 on a regular basis, kind of like the way the Pirates have been playing,
yeah,
um, this is a workable rotation that could probably keep you in ball games until your offense can come around or whatever the case may be. For the most part, it's going to have nights, and it's going to have those games like yesterday with McGreevy that just aren't really there. But for the most part, it's a serviceable rotation. It just
yeah.
the road to the offense hasn't been there to support it that much.
I mean, that's a great point. I mean, it's one of those things that I feel like this conversation has been the one that we've had several times. It's a decent team that can never put it all together at the same time, and I think that that's the difference between winning the division or being right there to win a division or being where they are, which isn't necessarily terrible considering where we thought they could be. But yeah, it's where all facets of the game never really match up, and I want to see if that's the next step. Milwaukee doesn't hit a ton of home runs, but boy, they score a lot of runs. Type situation, and then they don't necessarily have. Well, they do have probably the Cy Young winner, but is that the difference in what's going to potentially win them 100 games? You know what I mean? Is that how teams are made up to where they are now?
Yeah, I mean that kind of arm always helps, right?
Yeah,
and hopefully the Cardinals will develop something, not to that level because you're just not going to get a Mizorowski or anything like that for the most part, but at least some sort of power arm. That's what the Cardinals are trying to develop, right? I mean, that's what the minor leagues are full of for the most part. They're just going to take some time to get here, and that means another year or two probably of still trying to piece it all together and find those gems where you can, and get the most out of these guys that you've got. Again, I think we've talked about it a lot that in 3 years, and obviously, hopefully, the Cardinals are better, in the contention before that. But in 3 years, who in this rotation is still here? Because you'd like to think that it's been upgraded all the way around.
Yeah, that's true, and it's I would like to see the checked boxes that our organization has to get to that level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, we kind of saw a little bit in the draft. They brought in some arms that are very interesting. Whether they'll be starters or relievers still depends on
Sure.
development, but and that they did that last year. They've continued to stockpile. We've seen it in trades, everything like that, to the point that there are just a lot of very interesting, very exciting names in the minor leagues. I would imagine, and we have such a bevy of prospect watchers that they could probably all agree that this has got to be one of the best times in one of the best systems that the Cardinals have ever had, but definitely in the last 20 years, probably. I mean, because it's a type of player the Cardinals haven't ever had, and in quantities that they've never had.
Yeah, I mean, are those the big wins in a rebuild season like this? I mean, you guys, like I said, selfishly, we say this all the time. Just don't ruin the summer. I mean, like, I'm fired up for tonight's game.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm excited for it. I mean, it's a Friday night game at Busch. I'm glad to be back. I'm ready for this week of games. Cincinnati, Chicago. Those games that are exciting. But as the long term outlook of what they're going through, does it help in a situation? Are you more enthusiastic after seeing the positive returns in the draft? You know what I mean? Is that the bigger part of the rebuild than what we're watching every night?
I think so. Yeah, I think the fact that they had a draft that, from all indications, not just people that follow the Cardinals closely, but also people that follow baseball overall closely, in those systems. They pretty much everybody thought they won that draft, or were one of the winners of the draft. Let's put it that way. And that's a rare thing, right? And that's I'm not, again, that's worth the paper it's printed on until these guys come out and do something. But
sure,
I think that may be the most important thing that happens this year. I mean, it's either that or the Jordan Walker resurgence.
Yes.
And that we'll have to wait and see. I have no reason to think that Jordan Walker's ever going to, he's never going to regress to the point he was. We'll have to see how much of this carries forward. But I'm sure this is exciting to see what his future should look like now. But getting that kind of draft class in, and that might be more important for the next great Cardinal team than even Jordan Walker is.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, it's where everything stands right now is exciting and intriguing, and has got me fired up to see where things go from now on, and that adds to my enthusiasm to watch every night. Just to see what it is. And I understand there's some frustrations, and that's basically what we've been talking about for 30 minutes, but it's still one of the situations where I think everything's moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
We're not the Giants.
No, not the Giants, not the Rockies. Not the Rockies, not not even the Angels, even though they just won 2 out of 3. And they have John Mozeliak.
Were you ever blown away though about when you see the Angels games and you're thinking, man, all 3 of those starters are better than what the Cardinals had? Nothing bad about what the Cardinals have, but I'm like, how the Angels are, to me, it just blows me away.
Yeah, how they can
Yeah,
say that bad?
yes,
Yeah, yeah. I don't.
because I mean, you can't tell me the guy that started game 2, he's almost elite. I
Yeah,
was like, man, this guy's really, really good. So yeah, I don't know. It just blows me away. And you have Trout in center field, and you're still, I don't know.
I mean,
You
we
know
have Trout and
the
Otani, and
exactly. I mean, it
and
just
Pujols.
it's crazy. Well,
Yeah,
Pujols, and then now you have Nito, and I mean they're
yeah,
not. That lineup's not. I don't know. They blow me away. I mean, it's just such a forgotten organization.
yeah. That has had its share of turmoil and um, controversy and tragedy, if you will. Even I mean, for a long time, it's if you believed in curses, you might believe that the angels were cursed. With 2002 notwithstanding, but yeah, it's weird, and I don't know if it's played second fiddle to the Dodgers or the
Yeah,
fact that you know Artie Moreno doesn't quite understand what he's doing out there. I don't know, but
I would
it's
assume that's probably the
yeah, I think
prevalent.
that's probably a large part of
Yeah,
it right there. But it's interesting to, and who knows? I mean, I'd really be very interested to see if John Mozeliak can change the culture out there.
sure.
Um, I mean, my expectation is that he's only going to be there till they find a new GM, which might be the end of the year. It might be after the lockout is over, whenever that may be.
Yeah,
But so he may not have a lot of time to do it, but I'd be very interested to see if he could start the processes that eventually down the road you could say you could have point back and say it all start turning around here. I don't know, you know, I'm not saying they're going to be a juggernaut or anything like that, but at least not a laughing stock.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
that's. I am curious to see his long term outlook out there. I mean, it was nice to see him. I was glad he was on the broadcast. I mean, it was exciting, and I bet he could have some fun with what to do with that roster if there was some long term promises given. But I just don't trust Marino.
yeah, yeah, and I think it's going to be very. I mean, of course, walking in 2 weeks before the draft, I think from all indication, I haven't seen anything that said they just botched the draft or anything. And I'm sure that's because Mo turned it over to the scouting people that have been doing this, and just kind of let them do what they're going to do, which is kind of a John Mozeliak type of a thing to do, right? Find the
Yeah,
experts and let them do what they're supposed to do. Um, I think it's going to be interesting to see, yeah, how much what can he do at the trade deadline? Will he, you know, will he decide to be aggressive or it's going to be very weird if we see an aggressive John Mozeliak, right? Because we haven't used to
yeah,
that. And it's also, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's got to be an awkward situation. You're kind of you're hired by them, but you're almost like a guest. It's like how much can
yeah,
I, how many walls can I knock down? I know there was an article about the Red Sox looking at Nito, and is that a deal that you can make as a interim GM? I don't know. I mean, I guess it depends on what kind of freedom they gave him. And if they want to say remake this team, remake this team. I don't know, but if he makes deals like that, and maybe it's more likely he's going to stick around. I don't know.
yeah. I mean. I would love to have heard the conversation about how that goes in the interim. Considering that you have so much work to do, I don't know. I mean, it's really really intriguing to watch how that's going to play out.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure once he gets past that, then it's really getting into the kind of the hind bloom of it. Finding the weakness, finding out how the systems
Yeah,
work, finding out who needs to go, who needs to stay, and then start looking for that GM. And I don't know. There's still a lot of buzz. There's a lot of thinking that somebody like Randy Flores could wind up out
sure.
there, which would be interesting. And I don't think the Cardinals. I mean, obviously he's done a fine job in St. Louis, but it feels like they've built up the staff around him enough that they can kind of move on without dropping off. Kind of not missing a beat a little bit, which I don't think they could have done just a couple years ago.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good point. So and the Flores deal makes some sense just because being a California guy with some of those things that I think we put a lot too much stock in that. I personally do because it seems they never going to work out that way.
Right.
But the I do kind of wonder if him, I you know he was inherited into the system, and well, he's done a hell of a job. It's everything does run its course. So
Right.
I have wondered if that may play a part.
Well, and I mean, especially if he's looking to, looking for a promotion, and if the
Yeah,
Cardinals aren't, I
yeah,
mean,
it's a good point.
they do have a GM spot. I mean, and Heimblum's supposed to be looking for one.
Yeah,
But if he looks outside the organization, that means somebody like Flores and Moises Rodriguez and the guys that are there, may look for other opportunities. And it may be that, like I said, that's just not where they want to. Even if they're looking internal, it may be more like Serfolio or somebody like that. And so
yeah,
just depends on how he feels like his future is or what he wants his future to be too. But and that's assuming, we're always a lot of people are assuming that just because of the connections that John Mozeliak has here, and like you said, for us, all the California and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of reasons to make sense, but there's not any indication that Randy Flores is looking for anything else, or that John Mozeliak would try to tap back into the organization for things. I mean, there's no telling. So, but it's interesting to speculate on a little bit, nonetheless. And that I would be interested just because that is one of the few remaining holdovers that has a spot that Heimblum hasn't been able to really put his stamp on yet, and it'd be interesting to see what he did
yeah.
if that's the case.
I mean, and you know what? It's also one of those situations too, where I was thinking about this a lot, where $37 million is a ton, and that's one of those things that's almost impossible to move. But in a situation like this year, wouldn't it be awesome if Mo was to be able to offset Trout with somebody, and Trout goes somewhere where you can see him in a playoff run, before it's
Yeah.
all said and done. But like I said, that albatross of a contract is insane.
Well, and I mean, the biggest part is Mike Trout has always been adamant he wants to stay out there.
Yeah,
That it seems to really want to be a one team guy, which I get. That's fine. I don't fault anybody. I think some people would say,
sure,
well, he didn't want to win. I don't fault that. No, if you want to be where you were at, you're comfortable. That's understandable.
exactly. It seems like an overly
And
good guy. So
yeah, and I mean, you'd rather win at a spot like that than go, kind of tag along sometimes at a place that they did all the hard work and you just showed up at the last minute and get a ring. Some people wouldn't want to do that, so I get that. That's fine. But yeah, I mean, it could be he comes to the point where he finally says, "Yeah, let's see what's out there,"
yeah,
and it would be nice to see him get a little bit of a run, because it's been nice to see him rebound a little bit this year, and not necessarily that he's old Mike Trout, but he's a lot closer to it than he was.
yeah, that's true. I was thinking about that a lot during the series. I was like, I'd love to see Trout with a run. Just one, I really like him. I feel
Mhm.
like he's gotten forgotten out there, and it'd just be exciting. But you're right. I mean, whether it's his choice or whether they just couldn't move it, it'll be interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that would shake up a trade deadline. There's no doubt about it if they can pull that kind of move off. So, um, interesting enough. Cardinals had a situation this week, as which they've had a number of times this year. Scott Blewett came up. He pitched 2 innings, and then got designated for assignment. The Cardinals did that. They've done it with Schuster 3 times, I think, already. They've done it with, they did it with Bruce
Stuff like,
Zimmerman.
no,
And yeah, I just, I don't know. I mean, it wouldn't have been the exact same thing, but almost would have been that way if they had sent Dobbins down after the last start. It would have, at least he would have stayed in the rotation and all that. But um, I don't know what the answer is, because there's not one. I don't guess. I mean, that is part of the nature of the game. But I mean, you're right. That's got to be tough, right? You get a chance to make the major leagues, and then the deal. I mean, the Cardinals have not told them, "Hey, guess what? You're coming up," and then all of a sudden they're cutting them. I mean, they kind of know their time is limited while they're there, but
yeah,
it still feels like I wish there was a better way to manage this, because Scott Blewett was in the minors all year long. Um, he could have necessarily provided some value later on. I mean, the Cardinals probably could have kept him in there, except for the fact, kept him up for a while, except for the fact that they needed a fresh arm.
yeah,
And so I don't know. I mean, I'm sure the CBA won't address it. And, there's only so much you could do with roster and
sure,
stuff, but kind of wish there was something of, I don't know, even if it's, hey, you call a guy up, he's got to stay in the majors for 2 weeks before you see him down, something like that. I don't know, but at least they'd get major league pay and all that kind of stuff for a long enough time.
Instead of the pat on the back and the pink slip.
Right.
No, I know what you mean. And it is, maybe it hasn't, maybe, I don't know, recency bias that we go through all the time. It seems like it has happened quite a bit this year. I mean, around the league. So, I'm not so certain. Yeah, you always feel bad for the guys like that. Had been the soldiers in the minor league system for you forever, which is not easy. Then to come up and get your cup of coffee and and your walking papers, tough.
Yeah, it is. And yeah, you're right. It probably is going up. I mean, it's always happened. I remember different situations in the past where that kind of thing has happened where they've come up and the guy pitches 4 or 5 innings, but then they can't send him down because he doesn't have options, and so he gets designated for assignment. But I imagine with the way rosters are now and the way that you know there aren't a whole lot of people wanting the older guys to stick around on their team. I imagine that's just a lot more of that of people, because people, you can just see how often they clear, right? I mean, like I said, Schuster, they've done that. I'm pretty sure 3 times this year, definitely twice. I think 3 times, and he always clears, and he always ends up going back to Memphis and pitching there, and then at some point in time he might come back up. So that just means that one, there's a lot of those kind of guys out there. And two, people are just, they're not just necessarily grabbing. Now, we did see situation this week where Yohel Pozo got claimed by the Orioles when the Cardinals took him off the 40-man. So he's out at the AAA team for Baltimore now, which was tough. I mean, hard to see to some degree because he seemed like a real cool guy and great story, and that whole thing about hitting the home run last year with the bat decorated from the kids from the hospital. I mean, all the great stuff, all the legendary stuff, but it was also one of those stories that you always felt like it has always been. It's good for a season, and then it never happens again, right? I mean, it's just like that's their moment in the sun, and if you try to bring them back, it just doesn't work. And obviously, Pozo was a great teammate, and but he just didn't with as many catchers as the Cardinals have, there just really wasn't a spot for him.
Sure, and that's I mean, you said it perfectly. I mean, it's one of those that it's tough to see those leads, but those goodwill stories usually don't last out, and that was a 2025 deal, and and you move on. So, but yeah, I mean, it's one of those that they're just overrun with catchers right now anyway, and I think that's why you're starting to hear more about guys that may be available at the deadline. So yeah, I mean, wish him the best. It was fun when he was here, but I understand it completely.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is, and hopefully that means he'll get a chance. I mean, Baltimore's had some catcher injuries, which is why they went ahead and grabbed Pozo for depth. But hopefully he finds a way to make it back up to the majors at some point in time. Even if it's just in September September, which is less likely nowadays when you only have 2 spots. But still, hopefully he gets a chance to get back up there with Baltimore. I'm trying to think if there's anything else this week that really just stood out to you, to me. I mean, it's just been. I mean, I did notice the fact that I think the Cardinals play like 7 straight games with a different starting time. They kind of just bouncing all up and down the clock.
It still doesn't feel like this. Like the, I mean, post. I hate saying second half, but the post All-Star break has started because of the same thing. I mean, they have bounced around so much, so that's maybe why I'm looking forward to tonight. A little bit of regularity in this weekend series.
Yeah, a little bit more like it because you had that first game with Arizona was late out, for the people in Central Time, and then a couple afternoon games, which was at least nice, right? I mean, if you're going to play Arizona, play a couple of nights, and then that ESPN game against the Angels, which was ridiculously late, and then so and then the weird afternoon game yesterday, and so and then even afternoon games out in the West Coast are 3:00 our time
exactly
of that. So so getting back to Busch, getting back to an evening run of games, that'll feel good. And definitely don't want to play too many afternoon games.
Oh
but,
man, brutal.
Yeah, I mean Sunday is a 1:15, and I know Sunday I think here is supposed to be like 101, 102. So I don't
Yeah,
know what it'll be in St. Louis, but
not fun.
no, no, I don't imagine. Is it also me? And again, it's hard to know because yesterday was the only game, and I didn't get a chance to watch much of the game. I kind of followed it online because it was still at work. Were the Tarps crew guys there? I mean, I'm very interested to see how Tarps off goes.
They were
This
yesterday.
okay.
They were yesterday. I noticed the only shot that I saw was only about the first 2 rows, maybe 3 were
Yeah.
full. Now sometimes that happens earlier in the game, but
Sure.
now this is the broadcast was saying that the crowd was better than expected,
Mhm.
which I thought was really cool because of the Walker aspect of it. Like that could be really cool tonight with a full house.
Right.
But I don't know how much truth there was to it. But the one shot they showed of the Tarps Off crew, it was only the 3 sections or the
Yeah.
the 3 rows.
Makeup games like that are always going to be very difficult because a lot of people that have the tickets are there for the 7:00 game, and they're not going to come show up for a mid-afternoon game like that.
Yeah.
Or we're in town for vacation or whatever. So yeah, to have it did look what I did see the very end of the game or whatever did seem to have a decent enough crowd for a game like that. It's always going to be low.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just interested to see how that phenomenon, because it's always, I mean, obviously they're not doing as many broadcast shots of it as they used to, and that's fine. But how is that phenomenon going to continue as the Cardinals if the Cardinals struggle? Because that's been part of that. Hey, they're good. It's exciting and all that kind of stuff. And it feels like it's kind of faded off anyway. But if the Cardinals start struggling, how much of that's going to be out there?
Yeah, that's a good question, and we're clearly in the dog days, and we'll see how the team reacts, how the fans react, and how the clicks react.
Yeah, it is crazy that we're about to flip I mean, we'll have one more show in July, assuming we record next week. But that's very end of July. We're about to flip the calendar in here, and just 2 more months of the season, and it's hard to believe we've gotten this far already. And I guess it helps the fact that as we were talking earlier, the Cardinals have been so much better than expected that people have been able to lock into them, because I think if they had struggled, we'd be like, is the season not over yet?
Yeah, exactly.
There. I don't think we're there. We're not at that spot where we're ready to pack it up for the year. Now, give another 2 or 3 weeks like this, and maybe those things change, and we'll see how the trade deadline impacts that. But for right now, it's still worth watching.
Just a prediction. I think it'll be an interesting week.
I sure hope so. I sure hope so.
I think momentum may be high at the end of next week.
Well, we will see. You heard it here first, folks. It's Alan's calling a shot. We will see how that works out after 3 games with the Cubs and 3 games with the Reds, 4 games with the Cubs. See how that works out. So join us next week. We'll talk about it. But until then, for Alan, I'm Daniel. Good night.
Good night.
Is at 4 home runs this postseason. He's swinging for number 5 right there, and it's a full count.
The Rangers a strike away from winning it in both the 9th and 10th innings. 2 strikes on Freese, 2 strikes on Berkman.
Hits it in the air to center. We will see you